The Church Growth and Giving Show, your resource for growing faithful communities. Brought to you by Vanco, helping tens of thousands of churches thrive for over 20 years. Join Jordan and Hannah as they share insights drawn from decades of church giving and engagement expertise.
Being a church treasurer is no small task. It's honestly one of those behind the scenes roles that keeps everything running, but most people don't realize just how much responsibility it involves.
And that got me thinking, we should really talk about this on the show. I mean, proper financial management is critical for churches of all sizes, right?
It really is. I've worked with dozens of churches on their giving strategies, and I've seen firsthand how a skilled treasurer can make or break a church's financial health. It's actually pretty fascinating how much of an impact one role can have.
So, what would you say are the main responsibilities of a church treasurer? I think a lot of our listeners might not even know the full scope.
Well, it's a pretty extensive list. At the most basic level, they're keeping accurate records of all income and expenses. That's everything from Sunday tithes to the electric bill. But they're also managing the budget, preparing various financial reports, handling banking transactions, ensuring compliance with all those tax regulations, and sometimes even managing payroll.
Wow, that's a lot more than I realized.
And what's critical here is accuracy and compliance. Churches absolutely need to maintain their members' trust, especially when it comes to finances. Did you know that trust in churches is at a near all time low? Only about 32% of people report having confidence in churches' honesty.
That's actually heartbreaking to hear. But I guess that makes the treasurer's role even more important, doesn't it?
Precisely. A good treasurer helps maintain transparency through accurate record keeping and clear reporting. People want to know their donations are being used wisely. And if there's any hint of mismanagement or lack of transparency, well, that trust can disappear pretty quickly.
I see. So, what kind of reports would a treasurer typically prepare? I'm guessing it's more than just a basic income statement.
Yeah, there's quite a few. The standard ones include income statements, sometimes called profit and loss reports, that show revenue and expenses over a specific time period. Then there are balance sheets that outline the church's assets and liabilities, and cash flow reports that track exactly how money moves in and out of the organization.
And these reports, they help church leadership make decisions, right?
They do. They're crucial for the finance committee and church board to understand the financial health of the church and make informed decisions about projects and expenditures. So treasurers aren't just bookkeepers, they're financial stewards, helping guide the church's mission through sound financial practices and helping balance immediate expenses like utilities and payroll with longer term goals like outreach programs or building projects. A good treasurer helps leadership navigate those competing priorities.
What about best practices? I imagine there must be some standard approaches that help treasurers manage all these responsibilities effectively.
Oh, definitely. Internal controls are huge. That means having approval processes for spending, regular reconciliations, and proper documentation of transactions. Using specialized software is another big one. When church accounting is done manually, the risk of errors goes way up. Software automates a lot of processes and reduces those mistakes.
What about this concept of segregation of duties? I've heard that term before, but I'm not entirely clear on what it means in a church context.
That's actually a really important safeguard. It basically means different people handle different parts of the financial process. One person handles cash, another does deposits, someone else signs checks, and so on. It creates a system of checks and balances that prevents fraud and catches errors. Regular financial audits are another part of that system. They ensure everything is compliant and accurate. It's about creating a culture of financial integrity, which is absolutely essential in a church setting.
So when we think about the day-to-day tasks of a treasurer, what does that look like?
Well, they're overseeing bank accounts and reconciling them monthly to make sure everything matches up. They're processing various types of donations, whether those are regular tithes, special offerings, online gifts, or grants. And they're constantly ensuring compliance with all the relevant regulations, including providing proper donation receipts for tax purposes.
What about risks and challenges? What sort of issues might a treasurer run into?
There are several key challenges they might face. Mismanagement is one. It can happen even with good intentions if proper systems aren't in place. Unexpected expenses are another big one. Churches should always have an emergency fund to handle surprise costs when they come up.
You mentioned fraud. Is that something churches really need to worry about?
Unfortunately, yes. A nationwide survey of over 700 church leaders found that about 30% of churches have experienced some form of fraud. It might be identity theft, credit card fraud, or wire transfer scams. There are a lot of ways it can happen, but there are ways to protect against it. Using secure systems is crucial. Solutions like Vanco's giving software adhere to the highest level of PCI compliance, which protects data according to the standards set by major credit card processors.
And I'd imagine training staff to recognize common scams like phishing would help too.
It definitely helps. Education is a huge part of fraud prevention. The more people know what to look for, the harder it is for scammers to succeed.
With all of these responsibilities, what qualities make someone a good treasurer? I mean, obviously financial skills are important, but what else?
It's really a mix of hard and soft skills. On the technical side, they need financial literacy, which includes understanding concepts like loans, interest, credit, assets, and liabilities. They also need accounting and bookkeeping skills, and ideally some familiarity with accounting software.
And on the soft skills side?
Attention to detail is crucial. One small error in accounting can lead to big problems down the line. Integrity is non negotiable. They're handling money that people have donated in good faith. They need discretion to keep financial matters private, and effective communication skills are vital for explaining financial concepts to church leadership and members.
I want to dig into integrity a bit more. Why is that so particularly important in a church setting?
In financial matters, it means being honest in all transactions, not using financial information for personal gain, and ensuring data is recorded accurately, even when there's pressure to do otherwise. There's also handling restricted funds, which are donations specifically designated for a particular purpose, like a building project or outreach program. The treasurer has to make sure those restricted funds are properly categorized and only used for their intended purpose by setting up separate accounts, keeping detailed records, understanding donor intent, providing regular reports, and using proper fund accounting practices.
That sounds complicated, but I can see why it's necessary to maintain donor trust.
You're right. When donors specify how they want their money used, they need assurance that their wishes are being honored. A well organized restricted fund system provides that assurance and boosts transparency in the church member relationship.
Can you give an example of pressure for a treasurer to compromise their integrity?
Sure, there might be situations where a treasurer notices someone trying to forge checks, or maybe a church leader pressures them to alter financial data in some way that might benefit the church in the short term. A treasurer with integrity will stand firm and report dishonest behavior, even when it's difficult.
That's a really powerful point. And what about attention to detail? I can see how that would be critical when working with numbers.
Yep, attention to detail ensures thoroughness and consistency. In church bookkeeping, where mistakes can easily happen, an attentive treasurer will not only enter numbers correctly, but will also double check their work, follow procedures carefully, and maintain optimal compliance and accuracy.
So how does a treasurer help ensure transparency in a church's financial dealings?
They do this in several ways. First is open communication, which means regularly talking with church leaders and members about financial matters, explaining the church's economic standing and answering questions. Second, by providing clear to accurate reports that show exactly where money is coming from and where it's going.
That makes sense. And involving a financial committee would help with transparency too, right?
Definitely. When multiple people are involved in financial oversight, it eliminates individual biases and reduces the risk of dishonest behavior. It's another layer of accountability that builds trust.
And what about conflicts of interest? How might those come up?
Those can arise when a treasurer's personal financial interests might influence their professional judgment. For example, If they have a personal relationship with a vendor the church uses, or if they own shares in a company doing business with the church.
So how would a treasurer navigate those ethical challenges?
Regular financial audits are key. They ensure accuracy and fair presentation. Following a strict code of ethics helps handle conflicts of interest properly, and immediate disclosure of any potential conflicts is absolutely essential.
Let's talk about software for a minute. What options do church treasurers have for managing finances digitally?
There are quite a few good options out there. QuickBooks is popular and now offers a church management system. Vanco is excellent for tracking donations and integrates with other providers. Then there's ACS Technologies, Planning Center, PowerChurch, and Concordia Technology Solutions, all offering various features tailored to church needs.
That's helpful. I imagine software really streamlines a lot of the treasurer's work, right?
Oh, absolutely. Studies show that nearly 75% of accounting tasks can be automated through software, which dramatically improves accuracy and efficiency. These programs offer budgeting tools, donation tracking, and can generate financial reports in seconds rather than hours of manual work.
What about the relationship between church treasurers and fundraising? How do those roles intersect?
That's a great question. Treasurers play a vital role in the donation and fundraising process. They need to properly enter donations, categorizing them correctly as tithes, offerings, grants, or other forms of giving. They also need to distinguish between restricted and unrestricted funds.
And they provide receipts to donors for tax purposes, right?
Exactly. Churches have to provide donation receipts so donors can claim contribution tax deductions. They also support fundraising events by setting budgets and tracking proceeds.
What about compliance? Churches are tax exempt, so do treasurers still need to worry about tax reporting?
Yes, they do. Even though churches have tax exempt status, they still need to report to the IRS annually by filing Form 990, 990EZ, or 990N, depending on their size. They also need to provide those donation receipts we talked about.
And I imagine there are other compliance issues beyond just taxes?
There are. Churches need to be careful about activities that might not be tax exempt, like renting out facilities or running stores. They need proper fund accounting and internal controls. And they absolutely must remit correct payroll taxes. That's an area where churches aren't exempt.
Let's talk about collaboration. How does a treasurer work with other church leaders?
It's really a team effort. Treasurers regularly consult with church leaders on financial matters, providing input that guides decisions. They work closely with the financial secretary to develop policies and procedures. They might also collaborate with the church accountant, controller, financial administrative assistant, and payroll secretary.
So clear communication must be really important in those relationships.
It's crucial. Treasurers need to avoid jargon and explain financial concepts clearly so church leaders understand the implications of financial data. Visual aids can be really helpful for expressing complex concepts.
And how should treasurers communicate financial updates to the congregation?
That's where clarity and transparency are absolutely key. They should avoid technical jargon, provide easy to understand summaries, explain the church's financial situation in words and images rather than just numbers, engage regularly with members, establish clear policies for financial reporting, and maintain appropriate confidentiality.
That's a delicate balance to strike.
It really is. But when done well, it builds tremendous trust within the congregation.
What training resources are available for church treasurers who want to improve their skills?
There are quite a few good options. Turner Seminary offers a certificate in church financial management. There's the annual Church Finance Conference. Faith and Finances offers a course that's great for small groups. NonprofitReady.org has over 600 free learning resources. And there are various webinars, checklists, and training materials available online specifically for church treasurers.
That's fantastic. And finally, what's the difference between a volunteer treasurer and a paid one?
Well, beyond the obvious difference in compensation, there are often differences in the scope of work and expected expertise. Volunteer treasurers might handle all accounting duties in smaller churches, but have minimal experience. Paid treasurers usually work in larger churches, handle more complex accounting, and are expected to have significant expertise.
I can see pros and cons to both approaches.
Absolutely. Volunteers can gain valuable experience, and churches save on payroll expenses, but paid professionals may provide more efficient, error free services. It really depends on the church's size, complexity, and budget.
One last question. How should church treasurers plan for financial emergencies?
That's so important. They should build a reserve fund. Experts recommend holding 3 to 6 months of operating expenses, or 5 to 10% of the church's budget. They should identify potential risks through regular reporting and audits. And they should create contingency plans that address natural disasters, unplanned downtime, supply chain issues, and budget changes.
This has been so informative, Jordan.
I hope it helps a lot of churches out there. And for our listeners who want to dive deeper, we've got some great free resources available. We'll put links in the show notes to professional committee agenda templates, strategic budget planning templates, and finance statement templates, all designed specifically for church treasurers.
Perfect. And where can our listeners find those resources?
They can access them in our show notes or visit our website. Over 2,000 churches have already taken advantage of these templates, and we're always adding more.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us, and remember to subscribe to our channel for the latest updates and resources.